The Emerald Nebula stretched like a poisonous veil across the viewport as Alara Nyx struggled to breathe. Her violet skin, normally luminescent with the natural biolights of the Lumerian royal bloodline, had dulled to a muted lavender. Blood-deep indigo, rather than crimson, trickled from the gash above her temple. "So this is how an empress dies," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the failing life support systems. "Not in glory, but in exile." The escape pod had never been meant for extended survival. Designed for quick retrieval, it now drifted through the Veil Nebula's toxic clouds. Its distress beacon deliberately disabled by the same hands that had programmed its course, her cousin. Elora closed her eyes. Recalling the moment everything collapsed, the emergency council meeting. The fabricated evidence of her collusion with the dreaded Scorch Armada, the silent, practiced way her closest advisors had moved against her, as if they'd rehearsed her downfall for months. Perhaps they had. "Empress Nyx is a liability," Doric had announced, his amber eyes gleaming with ambition poorly disguised as duty. "Lumiras cannot stand against the Armada without sacrificial alliance with the Helix Federation." Sacrificial indeed. She knew what bargain her cousin had struck: Lumerian crystal technology exchanged for military protection and personal power. Her people would become servants rather than partners. The pod shuddered violently. Something had struck its space debris, perhaps, or the crystalline organisms that thrived in the nebulous radiation. Yalara braced herself against the control panel, accidentally activating the external cameras. That's when she saw it, a vessel unlike any Lumerian craft. Approaching with alarming speed, Kane Harlow killed the thrusters on his scout ship, the Wayfarer, and squinted at the unidentified object drifting through the nebula's toxic gases. "Unusual debris pattern for this sector," he muttered to himself, adjusting the scanner frequency. The Alliance would have his license for this unauthorized detour. But something about the anomaly had triggered his instincts. The scanner beeped. Finally penetrating the pod's stealth shielding. Life form detected. Humanoid. Critical condition. Kane straightened in his pilot seat. The Celestial Alliance's directives were clear. Chart the unregistered territories, report findings, avoid engagement. Direct contact with unknown entities was strictly prohibited after the meridian. Conflict. But Kane hadn't joined the Pathfinder. Division to follow orders that contradicted his conscience. Initiating. Emergency retrieval, he told his ship's AI. Right. Medical bay for unknown physiology. Protocol. Violation noted. The AI responded flatly. Celestial Alliance Code, Section 5.73, Override Authorization, Harlow Deltanine. Kane interrupted, guiding his ship alongside the pod. Some rules deserve breaking. Retrieval took precision. The nebulous radiation interfered with the tractor beam, forcing Kane to manually dock with the damaged pod. When the airlock finally cycled open, he stood face to face with a sight he'd never encountered in all his years of exploration. A woman, clearly not human despite her humanoid form, lay collapsed on the pod's floor. Her violet skin shimmered faintly, with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with her labored breathing. The royal insignia etched into her damaged armor told Kane everything he needed to know. He'd just found himself entangled in imperial politics far beyond his pay grade as he lifted her unconscious form. Surprisingly light, despite her regal bearing. Her eyes fluttered open, entirely black except for pinpoints of silver light, like stars in a midnight sky. "If you're here to finish what they started," she whispered hoarsely, "make it quick." Kane shook his head. "I'm not with them, whoever they are." Her star-filled eyes studied him with suspicion before consciousness slipped away again. Kane carried the mysterious Empress into his ship, knowing his decision had just changed. The course of his life and possibly the fate of worlds he'd never even heard of. Plot course to Sanctuary Outposts. He ordered his AI, delete all records of this encounter. The Wayfarer disappeared into the nebula's swirling clouds, leaving nothing but stardust and ashes in its wake. Kane's Sanctuary Outpost clung to the dark side of Elbrus 7, a forgotten moon orbiting an uninhabited gas giant. The Alliance had abandoned the research station years ago after the mineral surveys came back negative. Their oversight had become Kane's salvation, a perfect hiding place when regulations felt too constraining. Now it would be a refuge for an alien empress. Your physiology is remarkable, Kane murmured, monitoring Ilara's vital signs as the medical pod worked to neutralize the nebulous toxins from her system. 3 days had passed since the rescue, and she had drifted in and out of consciousness. Muttering names and phrases in her melodic native tongue, the Empress's eyes snapped open, fully alert for the first time. In one fluid motion, she grabbed Kane's wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. "Where am I? Who sent you?" Her voice was clear and commanding, despite her weakened state. Kane remained calm. "I'm Kane Harlow, independent explorer. Technically contracted with the Celestial Alliance, but I've always had a flexible interpretation of their directives." He gently freed his wrist. "You're on Elbrus 7, an unmapped outpost. Nobody knows you're here." Lara's star-flecked eyes narrowed. "And what do you want in return for this?" "Rescue. Crystal technology. Access to Lumerian trade routes? How about a name first?" Kane leaned against the wall, deliberately casual. "Unless you prefer I keep calling you the mysterious purple woman from the escape pod?" Something resembling surprise crossed her face, followed by the faintest trace of amusement. "I am Empress Ilara Nyx of the Lumerian Conclave." The amusement vanished. "Or I was, until 3 cycles ago." Kane offered a nutrient solution specifically calibrated to her biochemistry. "Your escape pod's navigation log indicates it launched from the Royal Palace on Lumeris. The trajectory was preset, not an emergency evacuation. Very observant, human." Ilara accepted the solution, her movements regal despite her circumstances. "My cousin orchestrated a coup while I negotiated with neighboring systems for protection against the Scorch Armada. The council chambers were sealed, evidence of my supposed treachery presented. And before I could speak in my defense, I was sedated and loaded into that pod. And your cousin now sits on your throne. Doric always envied my position. Our bloodlines carry different intensities of bioluminescence. The brighter the skin, the purer the lineage. Politics on Lumeris are ... illuminating." Her attempt at humor couldn't mask the pain in her voice. Kane watched as she attempted to stand, only to stumble. He caught her instinctively, feeling the unusual warmth of her violet skin against his. "The nebulous toxins will take time to fully clear your system," he explained, helping her back to the medical pod. "You need rest. What I need is to return to my people before Doric sells them to the Helix Federation." Frustration flashed in her starry eyes. "Why did you save me, Kane Harlow?" "Your alliance has no formal relations with Lumeris?" Kane considered her question. "The alliance doesn't know about you, and it's going to stay that way. As for why, ... he shrugged. "Let's just say I've never been good at looking the other way." Over the following weeks, Ilara regained her strength while Kane maintained his cover, filing falsified reports to keep his superiors unsuspicious. The small outpost forced proximity that neither had anticipated. "Your crystalline technology is like nothing I've seen," Kane admitted one evening as Ilara demonstrated how her people harnessed energy through resonance. The small crystal in her palm glowed with her touch, casting violet light across her face. "And your adaptability is something my people could learn from," she responded, studying him with increasing curiosity. "Lumerians plan for centuries. Humans ... improvise." "Ash!" "Is that a compliment or an observation?" Kane asked, grinning. "Perhaps both." For the first time since her rescue, Ilara smiled a genuine expression that transformed her regal features into something breathtakingly beautiful. That night, as Ilara slept, Kane accessed the secure channels, bypassing Alliance protocols to gather intelligence on the situation in Lumerian space. What he discovered confirmed her worst fears. Doric had already signed preliminary agreements with the Helix Federation, opening Lumerian borders to their military presence. When morning came, Kane found Ilara staring out at the gas giant swirling storms. "You monitored communications last night," she said without turning. "It wasn't a question. Your cousin works quickly," Kane acknowledged. "But there's something else and rest among your people. Not everyone accepts the new leadership. Alara finally faced him. Something new in her expression, hope mingled with determination. Then perhaps an empress without a throne still has a chance. She stepped closer to him. But I cannot do it alone. Cain knew he was crossing a line from which there would be no return. What did you have in mind? Elar's bioluminescent patterns brightened slightly. First, we need to contact someone still loyal within the palace. And for that, we need to get a message past the Helix blockade. Their hands almost touched as they leaned over the outpost's communication array. The space between them charged with something neither was ready to acknowledge. The message was simple, but dangerous as specific resonance. Frequency transmitted through the crystal Cain had removed from his personal scanner. In Lumerian hands, it would activate with a specific pattern, one only the royal guard would recognize. This is madness, Cain muttered as they prepared the transmission drone. Even with the stealth modifications, the Helix patrols could intercept it. Lada's fingers worked deftly, programming the crystal with touches that made it pulse with inner light. In my culture, we have a saying, the brightest stars cast the darkest shadows. Sometimes the boldest move is the safest, because no one expects it. Cain watched her work. Fascinated by the contrast between her royal demeanor and practical skills, "You're not what I expected from an empress. Did you think I spent my days being fanned with exotic leaves, while servants fed me delicacies?" The teasing in her voice was new, a sign of growing comfort between them. "Something like that," Cain admitted, though I pictured more ceremonial headdresses. "I led my people through the court's famine and negotiated peace with the Meridian Collective," Ilara said, her voice softening with remembered pride. "A ruler who cannot work alongside her people is merely a figurehead." The drone was ready, its crystal heart pulsing with the message that could either save or doom them both. As Ilara made the final adjustments, her hand brushed against Cain's, sending an unexpected spark between them. For a moment, neither moved. The cramped control room seemed to shrink further. "Your temperature elevated," Ilara observed quietly. "Is that a human stress response?" Cain cleared his throat. "Not exactly." Before he could elaborate, the outpost's proximity alarm blared. Cain rushed to the monitor, his heart sinking. "Alliance patrol vessel," he reported grimly. "Standard verification sweep. They're not supposed to be in this sector for another 2 weeks." Lara straightened, royal bearing returning instantly. "If they find me here, they won't," Cain assured her, already activating the outpost's hidden compartments. "But we need to delay the drone launch." The next hour passed in tense silence as they concealed all evidence of Ilara's presence. Cain secured her in the hidden storage bay beneath the main flora. Smuggler's compartment he'd never admitted to the Alliance inspectors. When the patrol officers boarded, Cain greeted them with rehearsed casualness. Commander Harlow, the lead officer, acknowledged stiffly, "Your report patterns have been ... irregular." "Cosmic interference," Cain explained, offering the fabricated data he'd prepared. "Been trying to map the radiation fluctuations in the sector." While the officers conducted their inspection, Cain felt sweat beating along his spine. Below them, Ilara remained perfectly still, her training as a ruler serving her well in crisis. After what seemed like eternity, the patrol departed. Satisfied with Cain's explanations but leaving a warning about protocol adherence, when they were safely gone, Cain released the hidden compartment. Ilara emerged gracefully despite the confined space, but the close call had left its mark on her. Her bioluminescence had dimmed to conserve energy, an instinctive response to danger. "You risked everything just now," she said quietly. "If they had found me, ... double quotes, but they didn't." Cain's attempt at lightheartedness fell flat. "Why?" Ilara stepped closer, her starry eyes searching his face. "You barely know me. My problems are not yours. The rational choice would be to surrender me and maintain your position." Cain looked away, struggling to articulate feelings he barely understood himself. "Maybe I'm tired of rational choices. Or maybe..." He met her gaze again. "Maybe I've seen enough of the universe to recognize something worth protecting." The silence between them vibrated with unspoken words. Then, with deliberate slowness, Ilara raised her hand to his face, her violet fingers tracing the contour of his jaw with a touch so light it might have been imagined. In my culture, she whispered. This gesture signifies trust beyond words. That night they launched the drone, its crystal heart carrying hope toward distant Lumeris. As they watched it disappear into the starfield, Kane felt Alara's hand find his in the darkness. Whatever came next. Something fundamental had shifted between them, something neither imperial politics nor alliance regulations could define or constrain. Trust had blossomed in twilight, and neither knew where it might lead. 28 days after sending their crystal message, the response arrived not as a transmission, but in physical form. A small Lumerian scout vessel, bearing the insignia of the Royal Guard, yet modified to appear as a common merchant ship, docked at the outpost under cover of Elbrus 7's perpetual electromagnetic storms. Captain Zaravex introduced the tall, violet-skinned woman who emerged from the airlock. Unlike Alara, her bioluminescence patterns were sharper, military in their precision. She dropped to one knee before Alara. My Empress, we feared you lost to the void. Rise, old friend, Alara said warmly, clasping the captain's hands. What news from home? Kane watched their reunion from a respectful distance, noting the ease with which Alara slipped back into her role as sovereign. These past weeks, he'd come to know a different side of Hertha woman behind the crown who hummed ancient Lumerian melodies while helping him repair the outpost's filtration system, who challenged him to strategy games and laughed when he occasionally outmaneuvered her. Captain Vex's report was grim. Doric had accelerated the integration with the Helix Federation, allowing their security forces to maintain order as public unrest grew. The crystal mines Lumoris's primary resource were being stripped at unsustainable rates. The Festival of Illumination approaches in 7 days, Vex explained. Doric plans to use the ceremony to formalize his rule permanently, with the High Priestess's blessing. Then we have our window, Alara said, her voice hardening with resolve. The entire royal court will be gathered at the Crystal Citadel. If we can expose Doric's treachery during the ceremony itself, a frontal approach would be suicide, Kane interjected, stepping forward. The Helix forces have established a security grid around the palace district. Captain Vex regarded the human with suspicious eyes. And you are? The man who saved your empress when everyone else believed her dead, Alara replied before Kane could speak. And now, our strategist. Through the night, the three worked to formulate a plan audacious in its simplicity. Captain Vex would return to Lumeris, positioning loyal guards at key locations. Kane, using modified identity crystals, would pose as a Helix Federation envoy, with LRR distinctive features concealed as his aide. The underground passages beneath the Eastern Gardens remained sealed to all but those with royal blood, LRR explained, highlighting the route on the holographic map. My bioluminescence pattern will grant us access. As dawn approached, Captain Vex prepared to depart with their carefully crafted plans. Before leaving, she pulled Kane aside. If you betray her, the captain said quietly, no corner of this galaxy will hide you from my wrath. Kane met her gaze steadily. I would die before letting harm come to her. Something in his voice must have convinced the captain, for she nodded once before boarding her vessel. Alone again, Kane found Alara on the observation deck, her violet skin aglow with renewed purpose as she gazed at the stars. Are you certain about this? He asked, joining her. Once we're on Lumeris, there's no guarantee we can escape if things go wrong. Lara turned to him, her starlit eyes holding his. When I was first crowned, the High Priestess told me that a true empress knows when to stand alone and when to trust another's strength. She moved closer until mere inches separated them. I choose to trust yours, Kane Harlow. The distance between them had been shrinking for weeks, emotionally, intellectually, and now physically. When Kane finally bridged that final gap, drawing her into his arms, it felt inevitable as gravity. Their kiss began tentatively. An exploration of differences, her skin warmer than human norm, her heartbeat creating a different rhythm against his chest. But differences melted into harmony as the kiss deepened, her luminescence brightening in response to emotions she no longer tried to conceal. This complicates an already dangerous mission, Kane murmured when they finally parted, though he made no move to step away. On the contrary, Lyra's fingers traced patterns on his chest. leaving faint trails of light that slowly faded. Where I come from, clarity of heart brings clarity of purpose. Their remaining days at the sanctuary passed in dual preparation, strategizing their infiltration while exploring the newfound intimacy between them. Each night spent in each other's arms felt stolen from fate. Precious moments before facing the uncertainty ahead, on the eve of their departure. As they lay entwined in the observation deck's ambient starlight, Alara propped herself on an elbow to study Kane's face. In Lumerian tradition, when we care deeply for someone, she began, selecting her words carefully, we share our inner light. She placed her palm against his chest. It creates a resonance that remains, even when separated by vast distances. Kane covered her hand with his own. Is that a proposal, Your Majesty? Her laugh was soft, musical. It's a promise, Explorer Harlow. Her bioluminescence intensified, warmth spreading from her palm into his chest. Whatever happens on Lumeris, part of me will always be with you. The sensation was unlike anything Kane had experienced, a gentle vibration that seemed to harmonize with his own heartbeat. When she finally withdrew her hand, a faint violet glow remained on his skin for several moments before fading. And now you carry my light, she whispered, as they prepared for sleep, knowing tomorrow would bring either victory or doom. Kane realized he had crossed a threshold he never anticipated when rescuing a mysterious alien from an escape pod. He had fallen in love with an empress from the stars, and for her, he would challenge an empire. The crystal citadel of Lumereus rose like a massive geode from the planet's surface, its faceted towers refracting the light of the binary suns into kaleidoscopic patterns. Under different circumstances, Kane might have marveled at its beauty. Now, disguised as a Helix Federation diplomat in stiff formal attire, he focused only on the mission. Beside him, Alara was nearly unrecognizable. A specialized dermal mask dimmed her bioluminescence to patterns, suggesting distant royal lineage important. Enough to accompany an envoy, not significant enough to attract scrutiny. Her natural violet skin tone had been muted to a duller shade with cosmetic compounds. Remember, she murmured as they approached the grand entrance, where Helix Security conducted biometric scans, refer to me as Attendant Lyra. Nothing more. Kane nodded imperceptibly. The Honor Guard expects Envoy Thurn Kazik and his cultural liaison to present. Federation, congratulations to the new ruler of Lumeris. Their forged credentials passed inspection. The genuine Federation cipher codes provided by an unlikely Alaya Helix commander, sympathetic to Alara's cause, whose family had been displaced by similar political maneuverings on their homeworld. Inside the Citadel, the Festival of Illumination was underway. Thousands of Lumerians gathered in concentric circles, their collective bioluminescence creating patterns of light that flowed through the vast ceremonial chamber. At the center, elevated on a crystal dais, sat Doric's amber eyes, surveying his triumph with poorly disguised satisfaction. He wears my mother's coronation mantle, Alara whispered, her voice tight with controlled anger. An artifact meant only for rightful rulers. Kane resisted the urge to comfort her physically. Captain Vex's signal. Alara discreetly checked the resonance crystal concealed in her sleeve. Not yet. We proceed to the diplomatic gallery as planned. They made their way through the crowds, Kane noting the positions of Helix security forces, more numerous than anticipated. The usurper had taken no chances. As they reached their designated position, caught sight of several royal guards with subtle modifications to their insignia of X's loyalists, strategically placed. The ceremony began with traditional illumination hymns. The assembled Lumerians modulating their bioluminescence in synchronized patterns that made the entire chamber pulse with light. Kane, despite the tension, found the display mesmerizing. Then Doric rose, arms outstretched to accept the High Priestess's blessing. The ancient woman, bent with age yet radiating authority, approached with the sacred crystal crown. Now, Alara breathed as the crystal in her sleeve finally pulsed with Vex's signal. Moving with practiced precision, Kane created a diversion by accidentally disrupting the formal line of Federation representatives. In the momentary confusion, Alara slipped away, accessing the hidden passage beneath the eastern gallery just as they had planned. What they hadn't planned was the security officer who noticed her departure. As the High Priestess began the coronation invocation, Kane maintained his diplomatic facade while tracking the officer's movements toward the passage. He was prepared to intervene when Captain Vex appeared, smoothly intercepting the officer and guiding him away with the practiced ease of authority. Minutes stretched like hours as the ceremony continued. The crown was presented. Doric knelt before the assembled court. The High Priestess raised her hands for the final blessing. The chamber plunged into sudden darkness. Confused murmurs swept through the crowd as emergency systems failed to activate. Even the Lumerians' natural bioluminescence seemed dimmed, as if responding to some powerful counter-resonance. Then, a single beam of brilliant violet light shot upward from behind the dais, illuminating the ancient crystal mural that dominated the chamber's ceiling, the historical record of Lumeris's rulers. People of Lumeris, Alara's voice, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, silenced the confusion instantly. I am Empress Alara Nyx, rightful ruler of the Lumerian conclave. Returned from the void to reclaim what was stolen. The beam of light shifted, revealing Alara standing atop the sacred crystal. Archway, a position only accessible through the royal blood-sealed passages. Her disguise discarded, her natural bioluminescence blazed at an intensity Kane had never witnessed. Patterns rippling across her violet skin and royal configurations unmistakable to any Lumerian. Deception, Doric shouted, rising from his knees. Guards seized the impostor. But the royal guards, led by Captain Vex, had already moved to strategic positions. The Helix security forces found themselves suddenly outnumbered and surrounded. There is no deception except yours, Cousin Alara continued, activating the evidence crystal she and Kane had prepared. A holographic display materialized above the chamber, showing Doric's secret communications with the Helix Federation. The bargain that would surrender Lumerian sovereignty for personal power. The crowd's murmurs grew to outrage. The High Priestess, still holding the crystal crown, stepped away from Doric in visible disgust. Kane moved quickly through the confusion, positioning himself beneath the crystal archway as they had planned. If Helix reinforcements arrived, Alara would have only moments to complete the reclamation ritual. Doric, seeing his plans crumbling, made a desperate lunge toward the nearest weapon, a ceremonial crystal spear held by one of the honor guards. She conspired with humans, he shouted, trying to rally support. She would dilute our pure lineage with outsider influence. The guard, loyal to Vex, twisted the spear away, but Doric managed to grab a crystal shard that broke from the haft. With nothing left to lose, he charged toward the archway, where Alara stood exposed. Kane intercepted him halfway, the diplomatic disguise discarded as he tackled the usurper to the polished floor. They struggled briefly before Kane pinned him, the human's combat training overcoming Doric's desperate strength. Your Majesty, Kane called, holding the struggling Doric, I believe your people await their true empress. Alara descended from the archway with regal composure, each step measured and deliberate. The chamber had fallen into awed silence as she approached the High Priestess. The crown recognizes its rightful bearer, the ancient woman proclaimed, her voice carrying surprising strength. As does Lumeris. As the crystal crown was placed upon Alara's head, her bioluminescence synchronized with its ancient energies, creating a display of light that cascaded throughout the chamber. One by one, the assembled Lumarians knelt, their own patterns shifting to harmonize with their returned empress. Captain Vex's forces secured Doric and his closest conspirators, the Helix representatives. Finding themselves suddenly on the wrong side of a successful restoration, wisely offered immediate diplomatic recognition of Empress Alara's legitimacy. In the aftermath, as order was restored and celebrations began, Kane found himself standing awkwardly to the side, the human outsider in an alien court. His mission complete, his role undefined. Until Alara, resplendent in her reclaimed authority, crossed the chamber to stand before him. The entire court watched as their empress faced the human who had helped restore her. Explorer Kane Harlow of Earth. She addressed him formally, her voice carrying to every corner. Lumeris owes you a debt that cannot be measured. Kane bowed respectfully. I'm just glad to see you where you belong, Your Majesty. A whisper ran through the court as Alara extended her hand. Palm up, a gesture whose significance was not lost on the assembled Lumerians. And where do you belong, Kane Harlow? She asked, her starlit eyes holding his, the question intended for him alone, despite their public setting. Kane hesitated only briefly before placing his palm against hers. A soft gasp swept through the onlookers as a faint violet glow emanated from the point, where their hands met the resonance she had shared with him, now visible to all. It seems, he said quietly, I belong wherever that light shines brightest. Lyra's formal expression softened into a smile that transformed her from empress to simply the woman he'd come to love among the stars. Her fingers intertwined with his. Then welcome home, Explorer Harlow. As twilight fell across the crystal citadel, whispers already spread of the unprecedented an empress and a human, bound by a light that transcended worlds. Traditionalists might object, politicians would debate, but for tonight, in the glow of restoration and unexpected love, such concerns belonged to tomorrow. For Alara had not just reclaimed a throne, and Kane had found far more than adventure among the stars. They had discovered what neither had been Sakina heart that resonated with their own. Across the vast differences of worlds and species, proving that the brightest connections often form in the darkest moments, and that light once kindled could illuminate paths never before imagined.